All right, so we're finally back. I wanted to show kind of what the issue was for me personally. So in order to run everything, you need to, here, let me drag this and bring it over. In order to get your Rails project to work, you're going to run these commands: gem install Rails, which will install the Rails gem on your particular computer. You're going to run Rails new businesses to get your particular app, your new Rails app, off the ground. And then you're going to run bundle install to make sure that everything works. So all of the gems that Rails requires is going to work in the background. I hadn't seen this issue before, but since upgrading to Ruby 2.5.0, which is the newest version of Ruby, every single year, the Ruby organization will release a new version of Ruby on Christmas Day. It's kind of like a Christmas present to the world. That's the way that they think about it. You want to make sure that the tools that you use are up to date as much as possible. Just like if you're a chef, you want to make sure your knives are sharp. If you're a painter, you want to make sure your brushes are new. I don't know. You want to make sure your brushes are clean. So you want to use the most up-to-date version of Ruby as you can, and the most up-to-date version of Rails as you can. So that's why we keep updating our own curriculum to make sure that we account for this. We found an issue where it says FFI is not working in 2.5.0, and FFI is a gem that Rails requires in order to run. So I was like, either we're going to have to downgrade our Rails to Rails 4 in order to make this work, or we'll have to figure out something. As I was telling everyone, this is kind of like, this is open source at its best. Somebody who uses FFI, which is an open source software, the people who wrote it don't always know what's going on because they're not using it every second of every day. But because so many people are using it at any given time, somebody decided to raise an issue. And you can see there are many different issues inside of here that people are raising at different times. Opened a day ago, like there's an issue here. You can see all these different issues that people are running into. Some of them they'll ignore, some of them they can't ignore. So it just says Ruby FFI, the gem, will not work in Ruby 2.5.0. That's a big deal. Like anyone who's on this particular version of Ruby cannot use this gem, which means that anyone who's using Rails with this particular version of Ruby cannot use this. I was just kind of reading through, like these are all normal people, just like you and me, commenting on about like what they did and what some of the issues were. People are taking screenshots and things of that nature. And then I was just, generally when I look here, I'm looking for the things with a lot of thumbs up and a lot of like party hats and things like that. So I'm looking here and nobody has anything. And all the way at the bottom, it was like somebody just had something very simple, 3 thumbs up and a party hat. It says, I managed to resolve it with brew install automake. I hadn't run this before, so I ran it, and finally I'm able to bundle install everything. So this is the way that I generally work through this open source kind of collaboration back and forth. Yes, I will +1. Can I +1? How come I can't? Oh. We probably got 3 messages. This person liked and disliked and disliked again. All right, so let's see. Let's make sure we have everything. So I bundle installed. Oh God. Bundle install. All right, so I've got all the way through. I'm going to install RSpec. All right, and you can kind of see over here that we have this spec file with the Rails helper and the spec helper. We're going to write all of our RSpec code inside of here. Now we're going to create a giant CRUD app today of businesses. A business, we can create, read, update, and destroy a business. We're only going to have what's called one resource today, so we're only going to be creating, reading, updating, destroying one business. In the future, we'll do like businesses have many products and users and things of that nature. But as of right now, we're just going to do businesses. We're going to create a very basic migration. A business is going to have a name, address, and description. Sounds simple enough? Just a business. It has a name, an address, and a description. When we were writing our own migrations, we had to write the timestamp of year, month, date, hour, minute, second, right? And that took way too long. I didn't like doing that. So thankfully, the people who are behind Rails don't like that either. So they have something called a generator. So bundle exec Rails, G stands for generator, migration, create businesses. Now the capital C and the capital B are important because they're saying these are 2 different words, and then we're going to separate it when we actually create the file. So instead of right-clicking, creating a new file inside of DB, and creating a migrate folder with this particular timestamp, this one command, bundle exec rails g migration, will actually do all of that for you. And I said the capital C and the capital B are important because you have this C, create businesses. These are two different words. The capitals are going to differentiate like where the spaces should go. So we're here. We go under DB, migrate into this particular migration. This looks identical to Sinatra. It's everything that we've been doing so far. Maybe the migration number is a little bit different. It was 5.0 before, now it's 5.1. And we're just going to create a table called businesses that includes a name, an address, and description. So tell me, what do I type here in order to get name, address, and description? I want them all just to be strings.
Create.
So we have that. So we have create table businesses. And I just want the column names in here. So I want a name, address, and description. That string. And I think it's just t.string for all of them. I'm also going to add something called t.timestamps at the very bottom. What is t.timestamps? We talked about this.
Just basically uses the system's time clock.
Yeah.
And creates a like basically it's I think it's like 16 character.
Yeah, but what is it? That is true. That's using the system's time clock. But what is it generating? Like, what two columns in the database in this database table is it generating?
It generates a timestamp every time you create a column or a
Yep.
row.
So yeah. So t.timestamps uses the system's your internal computer's clock to create a column called created at and updated at. So every single record, every business record is going to have when it was created and when it was last updated. And this may be useful in the future. You may never need to use it, but it's always good to have when did I create this record and when was the last time somebody touched this particular record. All right, so so we do bundle exec Rails DB drop. So before it was rake DB drop, now it's going to be Rails DB drop. I'm going to drop the database. There's something wrong with my computer. You can ignore all this. I'm going to drop the database. I'm going to create the database. At this point, it's just empty. It's just a container called business development and business test. This rake DB migrate will actually go inside the migrations folder, read through each one of these files if there was more than one, and actually execute this. It's going to create a table called businesses with these columns inside of it. And then finally, we have a seed, which we'll do in just a little bit. Okay. Next, so first things first, we create our database migration. So now we have a table inside the database. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a model called business. New file, business.rb. Just do class business, which inherits from application record. So you'll notice something here. On the left, we have create businesses. So I'm creating a table called businesses because it's a table with many businesses inside of them. The models are going to be singular. So you can kind of see I'm naming my thing business instead of businesses, and I'm calling my class business instead of businesses. And the reason behind that is each individual record is one record of a business. So that's the kind of like that convention over configuration thing. They're expecting you to make this a singular noun. And maybe we'll have some validations really quick. Maybe it validates name, presence true, and validates address, presence true. But whenever a business is saved into the database, they have to have a name and they have to have an address. Maybe they don't need to have a description as of right now, but they have to have a name and an address in order for me to save it into my database. All right. So I want to, at this point, I have my database table. I have my model, which will use active record. And then now I want to create a seeds file. I want to maybe create 10 businesses. 10 times do. I'm just going to copy this from your curriculum. I'm going to create 10 businesses. And each business is going to have a fake name, a fake address, and a fake company. This is kind of funny. This faker company.bs is basically all the BS that companies say that they do because they figure it's kind of funny. I think we need a faker gem inside of our gem file. So let's take a look. I'll just throw it in here, gem faker. Go into bundle install. Cool. I'm going to bundle exec rails db seed because we've dropped, created, migrated, and now we can finally seed our database. Okay. Everything seems good to me. Any questions on what I've done so far? So just kind of let's scroll up. I created a migration. So I'm creating a database table for this particular app called businesses. I dropped the database, created and migrated, and then I seeded the database as well. On the code side of things, I created this this migration file, the things that we know how to do. So we created a table called businesses with these particular columns inside of them. And then in order for our app to use Ruby to connect to the database, we had to create a singular model. So a business model will connect to the businesses table inside of the database. And we wrote a few validations saying that the name and the address have to be present in order for you to save it into the database. Next on our list is talking about how to take care of routes. So one of the biggest differences between Rails and Sinatra is the way that it routes. In Sinatra, we were very, very prescriptive in our routes, being written in the same place where our logic was. So all the routes went in the controller. Here, it's not so much that way. Our new routes are going to live under config routes. That's not it. I clicked the wrong one. Okay. All right. I'm going to add this route to So this looks a little bit new, but it's not as scary as you think. So as of right now, it's saying route to businesses index. And then the second line is get/businesses redirects to route. So basically it's saying the route path is going to take me to the businesses controller and then the index method. So the first half of the hashtag is which controller handles the logic. And then on the right side of the hashtag is which method is going to be the one that takes care of everything. And then, so anytime anyone makes a request, a GET request to /businesses, I'm going to redirect them to the route path. And then on this one right here, the route path takes me to businesses/index. Businesses controller, the index action. So let's run bundle exec Rails server. This loads up the server for us. We're still using the same port of 3000. And then like in Sinatra, we had to worry about like stopping the server and starting the server, and then some things we could have to kill the server and restart it. Like Rails actually takes care of all of that for you. You can change as many things as you want, and then it'll actually automatically reload everything every single time that it'll automatically pick up new changes, which is kind of cool. So we're going to go here. We're going to jump over to localhost. And I'm not going to add anything at the end of the URL. So that's going to take me to the route to businesses index, right? And hit enter here. It gives me very descriptive issues of what's going on. It says there's an uninitialized constant called businesses controller. So I made a get request to the root, and it took me to the businesses controller index. Now there's the reason behind it is when you go under app controllers, there's no controller called businesses controller. So we're just we're going to kind of go one by one. We're going to create a businesses controller. And then a controller, again, is that place where the controller is basically the area that handles all the logic between your different classes and directs your users to the right places. So MVC stands for what? Model view controller. So model refers to your Ruby classes, which connect to its corresponding tables in the database. So if I have a business model, I connect to the businesses table. If I have a person model, it connects to the people table. If I have a bank class, it'll connect to the banks table inside of the database. So that's the model. The view, self-explanatory, what shows up on the screen. And the controller is the thing that connects what shows up to the screen to the stuff that goes on in the database.
So it's just like before, but now the controller is split between apps and controller. Like what were we just on that was almost like the controller that tried to route it but couldn't?
Routes?
Oh, routes.
Yeah.
Which used to be in the controller.
Yeah, all the routes you used to write in the controller. But as you could kind of see, even yesterday, some of your controllers were getting very, very large. So they wanted one central place to have all of the routes. And that one central place is here under routes.rb. So I'm defining all the routes in one specific location, and all the logic that's happening, I'm going to direct them to say, like, this is kind of like a phone book. When anyone makes a request to the root path, I'm going to send them to businesses index. Whenever anyone makes a get request to /businesses, I'm going to redirect them to the root, which is going to take them to the businesses controller, the index action. So I'm going to create my businesses controller. It's going to inherit from application controller. And then I created a method called index. I'm going to refresh, memorize this particular routing error. It says uninitialized constant businesses controller. Refresh the page, and I should get something different blowing up.
What's that verify skip?
I don't want to get into it right now, but essentially you need to authenticate yourself in order to use Rails apps. So I just skipped it.
Okay.
So before this said there was an uninitialized constant businesses controller. And now if we read this giant ugly error, it says businesses controller index is missing a template for this request format and variant. So missing a template is the big thing here. What do you think is the issue? I don't have a view. So businesses controller has an index action. So we'll jump down into views. We'll create a new folder called businesses. The businesses view folder connects up to the businesses controller in terms of all of the different things that you may need. So let me create a new file. I'm going to call this index.html.erb. Right, this is not working. Index.html.erb. And I'll just say this is the home page. Couldn't find turbo links with this application. That might be because I deleted turbo links. Ignore this section right here. Now we refresh. Turbo links is still broken. Can we go to server? Run the server again. Okay, now we're at the home page. We finally get some sort of text on the screen. So let's pause real quick and kind of review the steps that we took. So I kind of removed the original boilerplate because I think people were getting confused. So let's start with this. A user comes onto your site and then they enter some sort of URL and they hit enter. The first thing that happens is that they'll hit this particular kind of like phone book, like 411. How may I direct your call? Or operator, how may I direct your particular call? The way that this works is it reads into this phone book and it says like what type of request is coming in. In our case, we were making a request to a GET request to the homepage, the root path, the homepage, whatever you want to call it. So I heard you. You're making a GET request to the homepage. So I'm going to direct you to the businesses controller, and particularly the index action to take care of what's going to happen next. It's like you're gonna. So every year, my wife and I go to Las Vegas for New Year's and after Christmas, and they still have people answering the phone like operator, how may I direct your call, right? And this year we had to buy bingo tickets. So they're like, oh, okay, you calling me about bingo tickets? Let me transfer you to the bingo department. Let me transfer you to Margie or something like that. So that's the same idea here. I'm listening. Like, what do you want me to do? You're making a GET request to Slash. Okay, in that case, let me send you to this department and then this particular person or this particular like team to take care of that particular issue. So I'm making a GET request to the homepage. It's taking me to the businesses controller, the index action. So I jump over, there's a businesses controller, and there's an index action. Right now, it doesn't seem like I need to do any sort of logic, so I can just have an empty method like this. All right, at that particular point, I'm going to redirect you over to the particular view, and then this will render something out on the page. That's how we get to this is the home page. But plain text is no good. I want to see all of the businesses we've created in our seeds file. So I want to create a template for that that's going to grab all of the businesses from the database and display it on the screen. So in order to do that, again, someone's making a GET request to your homepage. I'm going to send them to the businesses controller under index. Where's my business controller? Again, this is the brains of the operation. This is going to connect the database to the views and like do all the logic in between. So I want to grab all of my businesses. So I'm just going to do @businesses equals business.all. So here's the controller. I'm connecting with a model, this capital B right here, and I'm going to shove it into a view. So I'm going to grab all of my businesses and then and save it into the instance variable called @businesses. The equivalent of this inside of Sinatra, which you're more used to, is kind of like saying businesses equals business.all, and then ERB, like I think it was like businesses index, and then locals businesses go to businesses. So this is Sinatra, and then this is Rails. There's a few key differences. One of them is when you define an instance variable inside of a controller, it can pass down directly into the view. You don't need to do this locals thing. So this takes out one layer of complexity. On top of that, you don't need to specify which ERB file that you're going to use because it automatically infers if the method is called index, the view is also called index. So you can get rid of this line as well. This is that like convention over configuration kind of thing. They assume a lot of things for you. So I'm going to grab all the businesses inside the controller, and I'm going to bring it down into the view. I'm going to create a pretty easy and good template. Each one, all of the businesses, an unordered list. I'm going to iterate through each one of those businesses and list out the name of that business on the page. Before, my homepage looked like this. Now I'm going to say all businesses. Here's all of the businesses that I created inside my database from that fake data earlier. Right. So we're able to see all of them, and we're going to kind of walk straight through all of the CRUD. So CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, Destroy, and almost every app in existence right now is a CRUD app. With Twitter, you can create, read, and update tweets. Facebook, you can do the same thing for photos and posts and likes and things of that nature. So we're going to continue on with this businesses app. We're going to do the R, the read portion. When we list all the businesses out, we should be able to click on each one of them and learn about their page. So first things first, I start off with my routes. I need to create a route in order for someone to go anywhere. So get /businesses /ID should go to businesses show. Again, I'm the operator. Whenever anyone makes a get request to /businesses/ID, whether this be 5 or 6 or 15, it's going to take me to businesses controller, specifically the show page. So I jump over into the businesses controller. I need to create a show action. I'm going to do business equals business.find params ID. Based off of what the route ID number is, I'm going to find that particular business inside of the database and save it to the instance variable called @business. At that particular point, I'm going to need to create a view for it, because like I said, with each controller action, generally speaking, they're going to look for the exact same name as a view.
We make our params.
We could. So the question was, what if we give this some sort of, if we call this name, you mean?
Yeah, just like we actually, like we're using the parameter of the name as opposed to the ID.
So I would not, for this particular case, we're using what's called RESTful routing, and business, like things inside the database, we generally want to look up by the ID number. So the convention is just to keep it as just ID for now. So let's create a new file called show.html.erb and save it inside of here. I'm going to keep a pretty simple show. It's going to list the business name, give the address and the description, and then just have a link to go back. So let's see if this works. So if I go to /businesses/4, all right, I made a request to businesses/4, so it hits the routes first. All right, I hear you. You made a get request to /businesses/4. I'm going to send you over to businesses controller show action. Jump over to business controller, the show action. This is the logic that needs to happen before I render you off to the view. I need to grab a business from the database based off of the parameters that you passed in the URL, save it to @business. We're good to go. I'm going to shove you over to show.html.erb, and this is what's loaded out on the screen. The H1 of a business name, I'm going to have an address and description that's going to change based off of which number that you pass in. If I go to the third, same one. If I go to the second business, it'll change based off of like what I passed through in the parameters. And if I hit this back button, it takes me back to the home page right here.
So that last step of that request cycle was kind of like an implied routing.
Yes.
Like, it was implied because of the hierarchy of the files. The last part.
So the last part, you're talking about like before we used to have to specify the exact ERB template to load up, right?
Yep.
Or the exact view to load up. We don't need to do that anymore because it's implied, because the method name matches up identically with the with this here. Now, if you wanted the show to go to like another view, you would have to specify it, but by default, they're like, most of the time, people want will name their view files the same thing as their method names.
So then you would just add an ERB to that function then, or you want to specify it?
Yeah, so if you wanted to do a, if you wanted to render like show 1 or show 2 or something, like or show A or show B, you would just do render show A. So that's all you would need to type on line 10 to show something new instead of doing the default. Right, and let's go back over here. Let's go back to our home page. I don't really like this. Like I want to be able to click on each individual one. So that's pretty simple. I'm going to jump over into my index. I'm going to make this a giant href. Instead of torturing you through it, I'm just going to copy and paste from the curriculum. I still have a list element, but each individual list is going to take me to a new URL. It's going to take me to /businesses / that particular business's ID. If I refresh this page, hopefully all of these will become links that will redirect me to their pages. So if I hover over this, and if you take a look at the bottom left-hand corner, like Mueller hour will take me to number 6. This will take me to number 8, 9, and 10. I can click it. It'll actually take me there, which is pretty cool. So I currently have the ability to read everything. So this is the R inside of CRUD. I can read all the businesses, and I can read each individual business. At this point, I want to start creating one. I want to do that C. So I'm going to create the, this is the most difficult portion. I want to create a new one. So I'm going to do get /businesses /new to businesses. Now again, remember keep your new above your ID. Otherwise, if you throw it underneath, it's going to think new is an ID number. Make sure you put this above. Somebody makes a request to businesses /new. I'm going to redirect them to the businesses controller to the new method. So over here, I'm just going to add it in here, def new. And I'm just going to create a new business and not do anything. At this point, I've done all the logic I need to do. I'm going to jump back over here and then create a new .html.erb file. The reason, again, it's by default going to match up the method name with the template. And then this is probably something very simple. It's just a form. It's going to say create a new business on the top. I have a giant form that has a name, address, and description. And then we are going to have a submit button that has create business. So we'll jump over here. We'll go to /businesses /new. And then I have create a new business, and then the form that shows up like so. Again, I visited get businesses /new. I made a get request to this particular route. It redirects me to the businesses controller, the new action. Hello, operator. I'd like to, buy New Year's bingo and be the youngest person in the room. All right, let me transfer you to Margie in the bingo department. So I'm transferred over there. Margie from the bingo department picks up and then does a whole bunch of stuff, enters me into the New Year's bingo, and here I am. Some of those prizes are actually fairly big. I think they had one called Coverall. It's like evidently there's a lot of people who actually play bingo. Like it's called Coverall. You cover every single dot on the page, and if you get it, you get like $5 grand. And it's all tax-free money too, because it's all cash. It's interesting. I've never won, so it's always been bad for me. So I'm over here inside the business controller under the new action. It's going to look by default for a new view at that point, the new HTML ERB, and this is what we have right over here. I'm going to fill this out, whatever, and create the business. At this point, it's going to blow up. It says there's no route that matches post business. All right, not a problem, because this particular form has a post action to /businesses. Following that same thing, routes first. Post businesses. I'm going to send it to businesses hashtag create. Whenever the
What do you say routes first?
yeah, it's always routes first.
What did you mean by that?
Like I always go to the routes first. I always create my routes.
Okay.
Then I take care of all the controller stuff, and then I'll do the views.
Okay.
One thing that kind of confused me on the last one
Sure.
was when you're posting, that's on the business's new page. So when I was doing it, did a post businesses/new, and it didn't work. And then when I changed it to just /businesses as the post, and it worked. I'm wondering why.
So convention says that when you go to /businesses/new and you make a GET request to that, that's basically saying like, I want to see the form for all the new businesses, and you can replace that businesses with any plural noun like computers/new. I want to create a new computer. The convention for RESTful routing, and I'll send let me put that as a thing, RESTful API. So RESTful routing is like this idea that across the world, there's a way that people have phone numbers, right? In the US, it's 3 digits, and then 4 digits, area code, something and something. Similarly, when you're talking about the web, people try to find what's called RESTful routing, and that's what we've been doing here. So when you go to /businesses/ID, you know that it's always going to be the 15th thing of businesses or the 17th thing of businesses if it's /businesses/ID. Similarly here, when you want to create something, it's always going to be post to the entire like plural noun. So you can post to /businesses/new, but it's generally just frowned upon. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to post to businesses. Like when I hit submit on this particular form right here, it's going to set a post request going over to /businesses. Post request to /businesses. I'm going to send you to the businesses controller and the create function. Def create. And I'm going to do all of this stuff. Okay, so this create is this is the most difficult one. We'll take a break after we do the create portion. Def create, first things first, I'm going to do @business. I'm going to create an instance variable. I'm going to create a new business with business params. I'll throw this in here right now, might as well. If the business saves into the database, then I'm going to redirect my user to /businesses/ new business's ID. If I hit submit and it doesn't save, I'm going to redirect them to the home page. I'm going to let them know, hey, you messed up, friend. Now, what is business params? What is permit down here? It turns out, like, as the web's gotten more advanced over the years, attacks have gotten far more sophisticated. To prevent your database from getting attacked, the people behind Rails basically says you need to whitelist your parameters in order to let the things that you expect to come in to actually come in. Because I can, like, all I have to do is like submit some, like, before, when we didn't have these what's called strong parameters or whitelisted parameters, people could post directly to your create method with maybe malicious stuff. Maybe they have SQL injection where they can basically run a SQL command to like offload like all of the data in your database back to them. So the idea behind this is I want to only allow things that go in. I want to only allow things inside of my database that I want to allow inside my database. In our case, we only want to permit things like business name, address, and description in there. Like I could, if I didn't have this, I could have just, done like some malicious thing here, and then the value of that might have been like select star from users or something like that, and I can get all their usernames and passwords like that. SQL injection is not my forte, but we're going to have 2 people coming in over the next 2 weeks who are experts on cybersecurity and things like that. Again, business params is a private method down here. or you can call this whatever you'd like. You can call this poop. But I just call it business params because it's the parameters revolving around business. And I'm whitelisting, which means I'm only allowing things that I want to allow inside of my database. Let's see, maybe we'll have, so we go to /businesses/new. See, we call this Raymond's business. Raymond 101, Raymond Lemonade. We're going to create this business. All goes well. It'll redirect me to the home page. And where's Raymond's business? Something did not work. Let's put a binding pry. Something didn't work. It seems like because it redirected me to the home page, I should get some sort of flash error. So let's see. If I go under layouts, application. The application layout is the thing that loads up before anything else. I think I'm going to need to add this before the yield. I'm going to have a flash message and error message if something blows up. So let's go back. I don't like typing /businesses/new. I'm just going to add a link over here onto the bottom. So that, I believe, is called the index. And I will just throw this at the bottom to create a new business. Refresh the page. There it is. And it says messed up friend. All right, create a new business. Hello, hello, hello. It says undefined method pry. Jeez. I have to gem install pry.
Maybe that the whitelisted parameters, like maybe wanted numbers for the address or something.
It's possible, but I believe when we created the database, we said they were all going to be strings.
Oh.
Find out what happened. So we're going to continue here, and here we are. So let's take a look at businesses. At business, the name is nil, address, and hello. Created and updated. This is fine. So ID is okay. Created and updated is also okay because it's not saved to the database yet. So there's something that blew up with name. It needed a name, but it wasn't there. And of course, there's that validation. It validates name for the presence to be true. That's correct. It looks like I called this business name. So you can change it either here, just change this to name, or you can change it in here and call this business name. It's your call. Which one do you want to do? The method. That's fine. All right, so we're going to exit here. And if we go back, I'm going to say messed up, my friend. Okay, so we'll just do anything, 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 create business, see what we've got. At business, name, address, and description. Before, we did not have a name, address, and description. All right, so let's exit here. And then now it redirects me to that new business right here, businesses/11. If I go back over here, you can see my new business is listed all the way at the bottom. Okay, let's take a 8-minute break. We'll be back at 11:15. We'll finish up with update and delete.